The council is going to be approving the Sonoma Verde PID bonds, and they have a scheduled retreat coming up for the budget. I'm Bunker Bob Steinhagen. This is the Bunker Bob Show. Well, good afternoon, or good morning, I should say. It is a beautiful Monday morning, and it is good to be back with you today. And what I'm going to do is talk about the upcoming City Council meeting, which happens tomorrow night. There are a few things on the agenda that you should probably be aware of. And I also want to kind of preempt a couple of things that some people are misunderstanding about what's happening at City Hall tomorrow night, so that you don't go there with guns blazing. And yes, and by the way, Mayor Short, you can thank me later. But the bottom line is, I think there's a lot of misinformation and confusion continuing to go out on social media, and I hope that today I can dispel some of the rumors. On the agenda for tomorrow night, it's going to start with an issue with Russell. Well, I say Russell Phillips. I'm not sure that he's the developer. He's sold a lot of the shares of the development over to others. So I don't know if it's actually going to be Russell Phillips that's going to be making be presenting item 6-1, or if it's going to be someone else. But on that agenda is going to be a discussion about League Road. Well, actually, it's going to be about the amenities that are going on with Sonoma Verde, because at the last City Council meeting, there were a lot of people who were concerned about the future, about what amenities were and were not coming in, and it starts with League Road. And so the developer is going to be talking about League Road and is going to be presenting, updating the City Council on a few things. The first thing, and let me put on my glasses, because today I turn 50. That's right. It's a great day to turn 50 in America, I guess. But the first thing he's going to talk about is League Road, and one of the things specifically that he's going to show is a map, or this is a map, I guess, basically of League Road that you would see on that he may be presenting. If you notice in the red, that red line is the portion of basically the League Road improvements that have already been have been completed, and the developer is going to be talking about the fact that that they have completed the initial section from the development, which is Sonoma Verde, to where the road jogs with a concrete road instead of resurfacing the existing road. Now, the remaining section, that's in yellow that you see there, will be resurfaced in the next 30 days. In fact, it is scheduled to be resurfaced beginning today and will be extending until the 14th. So that's the plan. But that, of course, is only if the weather cooperates. So that's what's happening with the League Road. I do want to highlight the fact that those citizens who live off of League Road and that little development there, the developer is not going to be paving that portion, your neighborhood, I guess is the best way to put it. So that is only League Road, and I think those who travel League Road, which is basically connects Edwards Road and 205, is a lot of those people are going to be very, very pleased. The next thing that the developer is going to talk about when they discuss the updates is going to be the Sonoma Verde Phase 2, and this is the future improvements for Phase 2, specifically as it relates to the phase of development that you see on the left-hand side, and so when we zoom in on that, you see that this is the upcoming Phase 2. Now, if if you live in Sonoma Verde, if you drive in Sonoma Verde, then you already know that the development, that the road for this second phase has already been put in. So that's already begun. I don't know how much of the road has been put in, but I know that some of the road has been put in. And former council member Adrian Balcom was good enough to give me an update on what the HOA for Sonoma Verde, the information that the HOA received at the last annual meeting. So homeowners in Sonoma Verde who actually attended the annual meeting, they should already know this information, despite the fact that there are some people in Sonoma Verde who are basically sharing false information. And this is hopefully what I hope to kind of circumvent by basically preempting the developer's presentation tonight, because this is what they're going to be presenting. The first thing that the developer is doing is they're going to be putting in a trail. This is something that was not original to the development plan that I understand. That's what I understand. I could be wrong on that, but I don't think that there was a trail that was initially going to be put in, but it is now. Now, what I'm going to show you now is a picture of Sonoma Verde, and when you look at this picture, you can see that along the middle there is, you can see this is where the housing development's going to go in. But over here to the left, and I don't think you can see my cursor on there, and that's fine. But over to the left, you kind of see a little trail. And that is where the proposed nature trail is going to be going into, and that nature trail is going to be a very, from what I understand, I've got some very good information about the fact that this is going to be very remote, and it's going to be a beautiful nature trail for those who live in Sonoma Verde. So I think that's a good thing, a positive thing. The projected time frame for that is September or October. That, of course, is after the City Council approves the PID bonds that go in. The second thing that you're going to see is going to be the ball fields and open space. Now, the area just north of the amenity center, and the amenity center is, those of you who live there, you know where the amenity center is. So behind that area, you're going to see the and let me give you a better picture of that. So you can see right there where the tennis courts are. That's in blue. Right behind that, you see this kind of bean-shaped area that's been kind of smoothed out, and then to the right of that bean shaped area is kind of a triangular area. Well, all those 9 acres, that's part of the what is going to be the ball fields and open space. It includes a dry detention area with 2 soccer fields and a baseball field to be constructed with the completion of phase 2. The site, of course, is, well, most people around this area understand about the height and things, but the site is extremely low, and so they're going to begin filling the site with fill dirt in August and September after phase 2 improvements are accepted by the city, of course. And the dirt work should be completed by the end of September. But the fields, which is really the point, is the fields will be ready or are scheduled to be ready in June or July of 2020. So that, of course, is depending on the weather. Now, they're also talking about enclosing the what do you call it? The amenity center. The amenity center pavilion, that's what it is. That pavilion and amenity center is something that is not available to those who live in Sonoma Verde all year round. Well, the developer basically heard from some of the citizens, from some of the homeowners who want that amenity center open. And so they are going to do that and create and basically start building a enclosing part of the center to provide a space for year-round use. So that, for those who live in Sonoma Verde who like the amenity center being available for year-round use, that'll be a good thing. I hope that they can keep kids out, all that stuff, but that, of course, understand that those of you who live in Sonoma Verde, these improvements are being put in by the developer, but understand you're going to pay for them. So your HOA dues. That's going to be where the developer basically, when you want more improvements, when you want more things, and this is part of the phase 1 area of the Sonoma Verde development, well, those costs are basically passed on to you. So just be aware that you will be careful what you ask for sometimes, because you just might get it. I want to move next to the next item, which is the public hearing, which is item 6.2 on the agenda, which is regarding assessments levied against certain accessible property within the Sonoma Verde Improvement District. And what this means is that those of you who are part of Sonoma Verde, that you're paying into the PID, you're going to be basically, you've got two portions of the PID. We've talked about this before. The first portion goes with your lot, and once you pay that portion off, which is $25,000 on average per lot, once you pay that off, then it goes away. The second portion of that PID, obviously, is something that you're going to pay ad infinitum. It's always going to be there, and that, of course, is to help pay for the cost of the inevitable improvements that are going to be needed, or repair to roads and your septic, that kind of thing. The key here is what they're asking you to do by paying into this is that there's always going to be money there to pay for any kind of inevitable repair that needs to be made. And so the PID, the PID manager basically establishes what is necessary so that there's enough money in that fund. And so you may see an increase in that fund, in that portion of the PID. And what they're talking about is they're giving homeowners in Sonoma Verde the opportunity to speak to that issue. Remember, it has nothing to do with amenities. It has nothing to do with your ballpark. It has nothing to do with your amenity center or the tennis courts. It has everything to do with the infrastructure, making sure that you have enough money in the infrastructure to take care of any inevitability. Okay? So if you're going to go to tonight or tomorrow night to the city council meeting to complain that you don't have a ballpark or you don't have these things that are promised to you, you're basically missing the whole point. You're speaking to something that one thing has nothing to do with the other. So this is where the imbecilic nature of social media comes into play, where individuals who have no idea what they're talking about creates a firestorm of controversy because they want people to believe that if the phase 2 bonds are approved, then that somehow your amenities are not going to be what they need to be, and that you can somehow twist the arm of the developers to give you the amenities that you want. Look, if you want more amenities, the developer's glad to do it, I think. You just need to get the support of those people who are in phase 1, for instance. And if you get enough people who say, yeah, they want to do it, the developer will do it. They'll add whatever you want, but you're going to pay for it. They're going to add it to your HOA dues. So quit complaining about what you don't have, and try to force the developer to do something that he's not obligated to do, that they're not obligated to do. Were promises made? Maybe so. But the developer is speaking to the promises that were made that were brought up in the last meeting. So they're speaking right to the citizens. I just don't know why you citizens in Sonoma Verde who are complaining about it, why you don't go to your annual meeting and talk about it there. Why you're talking about one thing that has nothing to do with the other. So that's the public hearing portion. That's item 6.2 on the agenda. So if you're concerned about the increase in the assessment on that portion of the PID for the infrastructure maintenance, okay, that's where you want to go and talk and speak. If I were a citizen, if I were a homeowner in Sonoma Verde, my concern would be that there's not enough money in that PID fund. When I was mayor, that was my biggest concern. Some of the things didn't add up, and I think that the new PID administrator is going to be coming and highlighting the fact that, hey, there's not enough money in this fund. And remember, just so you know, just to reiterate, I think it's important that those of you who live in Sonoma Verde and you're paying into the PID, I realize you feel like it's an additional tax. It's not, because it's an assessment basically, but you bought into it and you signed the documents when you bought your property. You made that decision to do that, but understand, if a road goes out or something happens to the to the septic or something, or the sewer lines or things like that, and there's not enough money in that maintenance fund, guess what? The city will come in and they will pay for it. And even if the city has to come in and take a bond out to do it, they'll do that. But the bottom line is, on your next tax assessment, your next tax bill, whatever your portion of that difference is based upon your lot, you're going to have to pay the whole amount that next year. And it could be a few $100s to a few $1,000s. So it's better to pay a little bit now over time than to get hit all at once, because the city is obligated to do that. This is part of the management of the city, the management of a PID. We've talked about it in former shows. PIDs are not the solution to cities, and the fact that a PID exists in our city, I mean, at least it's not as bad as a MUD, which we prevented from happening by giving away the 4,000 acres to the city of Rockwall. Had we allowed a MUD to come in that 4,000 acres, guess what? Those people who lived in that MUD, no tax revenue would come to the city. None, zero. It would be an enormous burden to the city, but more importantly, to those people who live in that MUD. So let's move on to the next item, which is item 6.3 and 6.4, which is basically considering the approval of the bonds for the Sonoma Verde PID Phase 2. So this basically is funding all of that dirt work and the infrastructure where they're putting in the sewer system, those and the streets and roads. That is basically what is being paid for there. And it's important to know that this is part of the service and assessment plan that was already approved and is in place. So it's basically updating that plan. Here's where we are in this. Again, it has nothing to do with your amenities. It has everything to do with the infrastructure of the development. So that is going to be the focus of those two items on the agenda. Next item is basically the agreement for the fire protection services and integration between the McLennan-Chisholm Volunteer Fire Department and the city of McLennan-Chisholm, transferring ownership of the MCVFD Station 2 to the city. Now, it was back in January, Council Member Adrian Balcom met with TxDOT specifically about this fire station, and where the city, where TxDOT, because it's owned by the city, TxDOT is obligated to replace the fire station. Now, if the MCVFD had continued as a private entity, quote unquote private, even though it was 100% funded by taxpayers, always it had been for the last, I don't know how many years, long before I became mayor or was elected to city council. Had that not taken place, had it not moved over to the city, guess what? The MCVFD would have to basically build their own new fire station, and they would be clamoring for taxpayers of McLennan Chisholm to pay for it, because just like they did with everything. And of course, the fire chief's brother would probably take a cut of that, just like they did with all of the grants, pocketing that money thanks to former treasurer and current member of the city council, Herman Larkin. And of course, we're talking tens of thousands of dollars. The Texas Attorney General's office is now tuned into this, and it'll be interesting to see what happens. I hope Herman Larkin sleeps well and Robert Jones sleeps well over the next few months, because guess what? Things they are moving forward. But when it comes to the fire protection services and law enforcement, next Monday I'm going to try to get council member it just escaped me, the what do I call her, the Adrienne Balcom, former council member Adrienne Balcom, coming up. The Iron Lady. Thank you very much. Mac just gave me the answer to that. The Iron Lady. I don't know why. It's after Margaret Thatcher. If you're a historian and you appreciate history, you know what I mean by that. Adrienne is very much like Lady Thatcher. So that's why I call her the Iron Lady. But what I'm going to try to do is get Adrienne Balcom back on the show next Monday, and possibly former Mayor Pro Tem Scott Turnbull also on the show. I'd like to try to get him on Monday and next Thursday. And Monday, I want to focus on the McLennan Chisholm Fire Rescue Department, and on Thursday, I really want to talk about law enforcement, specifically what's going on with the sheriff and how the county commissioners and county judge are trying to basically force the city of McLennan Chisholm to begin paying for services that you, the taxpayer, are already paying for. And so that, I think, is going to be an important show to watch. So I will let you know, and I will post if I get a confirmation that either of them are willing and able to join me. Otherwise, I will be covering the topics, probably just not as robust a way as I had hoped that I could. I also just want to focus. I just want to highlight the fact that there is finally on the agenda, the last item really is 6.6, and this is the budget adoption calendar. You know what's interesting about this budget adoption calendar, as I look at it, is how long it's taking them to get focused on the budget. When I was on council and when I was mayor, we were dealing with the budget in June. This was the focus. They're not even focused on the budget until July 15th. And what's I guess it's disconcerting for a lot of reasons, but they have on here city council retreat and budget workshop. And this is disconcerting for a lot of reasons. One, a retreat is a very uncomfortable thing for the city council to put in print, because the city council cannot meet, cannot assemble in a cloister. They have to, everything has to be done openly through open meetings. And so I wish they would define what the term retreat is. When I went to a TML conference, Texas Municipal League conference as a member of council, I remember someone talking about this and talking about the fact that you really can't do a retreat. There's just so many laws against it, and they advise councils not to use that terminology. It should be a special meeting. But if they think that they're going to go and retreat somewhere, if they think that they're going to go to someone's ranch or house or something like that, guess what? I will be there, and I will bring my cameras. They can't meet without behind closed doors. This is supposed to be a real transparent council. I really think that it's more the word retreat that's uncomfortable than what they're really planning to do. I cannot believe that they actually mean retreat. I think what they mean is just a special meeting. So if I'm wrong, I'm sure even the district attorney of Rockwall, the city of Rockwall, will have something to say about it. It probably won't actually be a retreat. So just be aware when you see retreat, what they, I believe, really mean is more just a workshop, more of a meeting of the council. But they are, it's got to be an open meeting. And then on the 23rd, which is just the week after that, they're going to have a regular council meeting, but they're going to consider limiting the agenda to budget items. That's on July 23rd. Why is it? I'm not sure why, the way they want to do it is the way they want to do it. I'm fine however they're going to do it. But the thing that I still don't understand is why haven't they answered the question, how are they going to address the fact that 2/3 of our fire district is serving people who pay nothing in taxes, nothing. They contribute nothing to their own fire safety. So how are they going to overcome that? More than half of all the calls go to the unincorporated area. And yet they have never addressed this issue. And Scott Turnbull and I talked about this last week, that I doubt that they ever will. They're going to find other ways to try and fund this. But those in the unincorporated area, I think that they are going to continue not paying a thing. The budget needs to be approved, by the way, by the end of September. So that's important to understand. So that's on the agenda as well. They're going to approve this schedule. If I were on the city council, if I were a fiscally responsible member of council, I would say this schedule is it really moves too slowly. We need to start talking about budget at the next meeting. That's if we've got someone on council who's actually a fiscal conservative, that's what you'll hear. And if I actually hear one of them say that, and demand it and require it, I'm going to highlight them. I'm going to say, hey, this person actually followed through and did something like a conservative would do. And I'm like I said, where I'm wrong, and last week I highlighted the fact that I was wrong about the master fee schedule, how it would impact taxes. Like I said, like we discovered last week, that the new fee schedule for the city, the new state law that requires that, is really not going to hurt the city. And I think the way that Lisa Palumbo, the city administrator, and the city, the people who do the inspections, the way they worked that out, I think was really quite well done. I still wish they had charged a little bit more per square foot of a home, but we talked about that on the last Thursday's meeting show with Scott Turnbull, and I hope that you'll look back on that if you haven't seen that already. Then finally, at the end, what I find interesting about the agenda, I guess, that you have at the end, when I was mayor, I started something that they're kind of moving and they're kind of doing again. But the thing is, when I was mayor, every person on the city council had a specialty and a special focus. And so they had something tied to what they were doing. Mayor Short, so what you have instead is you've got Kippett, Wozner, and Dahl, who have no job, no focus whatsoever. So they basically, each one of them gets to make announcements. Now, what's interesting about this is if they're going to talk about things that are not on the agenda, it's a violation of the Texas Open Meetings Act. Now, I happen to be one of those who believes that if it's not on the agenda, and it has nothing to do with something that could come before the city council, then it doesn't matter if it violates the Texas Open Meetings Act. Because if you want to talk about the Dallas Cowboys, for instance, which would not be on the agenda, that shouldn't be a violation of the Texas Open Meetings Act. But the imbeciles who tried to create the illusion that we were violating the Texas Open Meetings Act because when I was mayor, we were talking about things that weren't on the agenda. This is the same thing that Donald Trump is going through right now. I mean, I don't see how any president, I don't see how anyone in public office can govern effectively if the people, if the leftists continue their assault against President Trump and like they did when I was mayor, they created all of these false allegations to create the perception that I was under investigation, that the president's under investigation, just to undermine that individual, that leader. That is a tactic of Saul Alinsky. That's a tactic of the left. It's something that I would never do to Mayor Short. I'm not going to, if Mayor Short is under investigation, I'm not going to highlight that he's under investigation unless I have actual proof of evidence. Now, when Herman Larkin starts getting under investigation for the misappropriation of funds that he helped in a scheme to steal tens of thousands of dollars for personal benefit that went to the brother of the fire chief, calling himself a grant writer, a professional grant writer, even though he'd never written a grant for any other client before in his life. They just called him a grant writer. They came up with a contract and basically filled out a grant application sheet that a fifth grader could fill in about 10 minutes. But that so-called grant writer received tens of thousands of dollars, taxpayer dollars, because of that. See, that's the kind of thing that I'll be highlighting. That's when I say, yeah, Herman Larkin's under investigation by the Texas Attorney General's office, and he shouldn't be behind a dais, but behind bars. Yeah, I'll be talking about things like that. But I'm not going to be throwing out idiotic accusations against Mayor Short or any member of the council if there's not some basis of fact backed up with empirical evidence that I can present. I'm not just going to talk about how the Russians colluded with this or that person. That's basically how our republic is becoming undermined by the left. And so we're not going to do that here. I'm not going to do that here. But when I go and look at what the reports and announcements that are being made, I know I got off on a little bit of a rabbit trail. Sorry about that. But I wanted to make the point that you're going to see that everyone gets a chance to make an announcement. And frankly, let's not split hairs if somebody makes an announcement and talks about something coming up that's not on the agenda, so long as that item, whatever they're going to talk about, is going to be put on an agenda. The problem is you have Herman Larkin, who has basically been given carte blanche authority to run a brick campaign where for veterans, where no money is going to be raised, but we still don't understand why the bricks cost $20 and the actual cost for the bricks was $20, but the people are being charged $30. We don't understand that. I'm not sure how much of that money Mr. Larkin is pocketing. Or where is that money going? They've never explained things like that, but they have no authority. They have no oversight. The city council has, at the last city council meeting, taken away that oversight. So now Herman Larkin is basically going out and raising money. And Herman Larkin, Mark Kippett, and former Mayor Mike Donegan, they're going out and raising money. But we don't know where $10 of that money goes. And so these men who have demonstrated by their actions to have nefarious character, who are completely bankrupt of integrity when it comes to the truth, these men are in charge of something that has no oversight. But Herman Larkin's going to be talking about the Veterans Memorial Brick Campaign and his committee. that'll be one of the issues. The other interesting one is that Bloom, Mayor Pro Tem Bloom, he is apparently the representative on the Emergency Services Corporation board. That is something that mayors should be on, and all other mayors for every other city, the mayor is on that board. And why? Because it is the mayor who should be making those decisions. Jim Bloom does not have any greater experience because he's a firefighter than any mayor, because the decisions should be somewhat objective and should be by someone like the mayor. And that, when I first was asked to be on that, I said, well, maybe I should give it to a member of council. And we talked about it, and it was made very clear to me that this is something that the mayor should always be a part of. So the fact that Jim Bloom is representing the city on the Emergency Services Corporation board is astounding to me. The fact that he also has an Economic Development Advisory Committee update. The problem is, it's my understanding, he's no longer on that Economic Advisory Committee. You know who is heading that up now? That's Mike Donegan, Mark Kippett. Those two guys are now leading this what I understand is a 4-member committee. I do know that Melody Osario is on this Economic Advisory Committee, and I predict I'm going to tell Melody something about that. If she's on a committee with Mike Donegan, I guarantee you that he will patronize her, and he will not listen to he and Mark Kippett will never listen to someone like Melody Osario. Why? Because she's a woman. Mike Donegan is a sexist pig when it comes to anything that has to do with intellect. It's his way or the highway. So Melody, I'm glad that she is on the on this Economic Development Advisory Committee, but I think you being on it is an act of futility. So beside that, we don't know anything that this committee is doing. We don't know what they've come up with, and they're not addressing the fact that more and more tax money is coming in through things like Amazon and food services that Home Chef, those types of things where you make your own food. Those things are taxed, and that tax revenue comes into the city. I'm very interested to see what that committee comes up with. So that's what's happening at City Council tomorrow night. And I think that it's important that we kind of follow up and keep focused on what's happening with the City Council, because we need an open and transparent government. I'm glad that they are continuing to broadcast the City Council meetings. I'll be watching, maybe bringing in some video that from Tuesday's meeting, and of course I'll be coming on Thursday. That'll be the next time I broadcast, and it'll be after the City Council meeting is over. And basically, I'll be giving you kind of an update on what happened at the council meeting and anything that you need to know and be aware of. So don't forget to subscribe to this channel. There's not a lot of people who subscribe, but this is really a show that is specific to and specifically designed for the people of McLennan Chisholm to keep you informed about what's going on and keep you in the know. So it is great to be with you today. I'm Bunker Bob Steinhagen. I will see you next Thursday. Don't be a stranger. We'll see you then. Have a great day.